Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a lot more people than I was expecting, but that's a good thing. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this discussion on the personalisation for bloggers and brands. And we're joined by Julie Faulkner and Phil Bloomfield, who will be discussing and taking some questions later on. My name is Richard, and I'm the Affiliate Strategy Director for Affiliate. So I'm here to, just for a few minutes, talk to you about the business side of things before we get into the nitty-gritty of talking with bloggers and with brands. Just as an FYI, there is a session immediately after this, so please stick around for that one, if you can do, and that's about whether working with content is a gamble. So that should be a great session too. So, the business side of things, just to get it out of the way. Affiliate, who are we? We are an affiliate marketing network. We're one of the largest in the UK, and we operate across the whole of Europe. We work with a lot of brands in the UK. Some of our biggest brands are Thomas Cook Airlines, Sandals, Sky, Debenhams, and it's our job, and certainly my job, to connect publishers and affiliates with brands. So a lot of our brands these days want to work with bloggers and content providers because they see that you guys have incredibly engaged audiences, that you're trustworthy as well, and are honest and give honest opinions. Affiliate has done a survey recently which says behind friends and family, bloggers are the most trusted source for people to make purchasing decisions on the web, which is really, really good news. So, like I say, what we do is we work and you sign up to our network, and then once you've signed up, it's completely free to do. You can then choose from our hundreds of advertisers on who you'd like to work with, and then you're able to promote those advertisers on your website, be it through creative banners or links to the website, writing content. Some of our advertisers do giveaways as well, or be able to review holidays, that sort of thing. It's a really, it's a great way to earn a bit of extra money and monetize your blog. I've been doing it for a long time. I am a blogger myself, although not a travel blogger. And it's, like I say, something that our advertisers are really, really keen to work with. We've done a lot with Traverse this year, and hopefully we will do next year, where we've run events for bloggers and content writers to come along. We ran a travel event where all our travel brands were there. And you could actually speak to the advertisers as well and kind of get to know them. And we also did an online retail one as well, which was really, really successful. So if you would like to learn more about affiliate marketing, if you're interested in it, then obviously please come and seek me out at the end of the session, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. But instead, I will pass over to the guys and let them take it from here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Richard said, there is a lot of you, which is somewhat more than I'm used to talking to, but hopefully I'll be all right. So, Julie and myself are here today to talk to you about personalisation. I'm going to start by asking a quick question, if I can. Who here likes to feel special? Who likes it when their needs are met? Can I have a quick show of hands? Pretty much everyone, right? We all like to feel that when we want something, that we've been heard, that we've been understood and valued. There's a direct correlation, as old as retail itself, between your likelihood in buying a product or service and feeling as if they know you and are putting you first. This isn't particularly new. Brands are finding ever more sophisticated ways to speak to us on what feels like a one-to-one basis in their marketing. Personalizing in this way, there is never a vanity project. And it's a key reason why so much value is put on the acquisition and interpretation of data these days. My data, your data, everybody's. That's either welcomed as insight-driven targeted communications and product development that creates something of real value to a customer, or an invitation for intrusion, depending on whether you're this guy or not. Either way, personalization is fundamental to how a brand builds trust. And trust, as any marriage guidance counselor will tell you, is at the heart of loyalty. The travel industry generally does personalization, in my opinion, pretty badly, starting with how we define it. E-commerce giants such as eBay and Amazon tend to monopolize the reference points around their people who like this, like that features, But that's a lot easier to do with books than it is with travel. The truth is that personalization in travel is very difficult to do. An individual, we're all different, an individual can travel for different reasons, different times of the year, with different people, looking to get a different kind of experience out of their holiday, difference. Tech is doing and does a great job of helping us to aggregate that data, but interpretation is still an issue. So what's the ultimate endpoint for personalization? Broad brush generalizations around demographics and gender lack subtlety, but at the same time, the supposed laser-sharp focus of automated personalization has its own ethical challenges. In my view, personalization needs to be done sensitively. We should be aiming to dig into the data and give it a utility that empowers the user to make good decisions. And doing so can be the foundation of trust and, therefore, loyalty. Cheapflights is a meta-search business. This means we aspire to provide totally objective, fully transparent results to our users in an online environment unencumbered by advertising or commercials. In our case, it's flight search, but the meta model exists across lots of different sectors, and you will have all used one for something. Regardless of the sector, though, the assumption, like any meta, is that we're the arch commoditizers, whereby both agents, that's us as the owners of the data and you as the users, are concerned with just a single factor, which is price. With a name like ours, why would anyone else come to us, right? And we're just about the data, reams and reams and reams of boringly binary data. And for the fact fans out there, that we have 4.5 billion data points every day. So how can all of that be made personal? Actually, the meta model is built on trust, not just price. The trust our users have in us to serve them with objective and actionable data based on the searches that they have made and nothing else. Of the 25 million monthly visits we attract with our sister company Momondo and the 60 million searches made, 50% are by repeat users, people who are coming back to us for more. You don't get that by just serving them a bare price response. Winning their trust and their subsequent loyalty depends, in my view, on the 5 need states of personalization being met. That's relevance, timeliness, utility, and accessibility of the expertise that we are giving them in responding to the query they make. I like to use an easy-to-remember anagram when I'm trying to think of this. Sorry, try that one, or that one, whatever. The point is that if the data hits those need states, then each of those users should feel that they've been heard, understood, and valued, i.e., that it is personalized. So to bridge the gap between impersonal data and users feeling like they're being treated with a human touch, what is critical here is that personalization is not just defined by what we're saying. Just as important is the how, the when, and the where it is being said. To illustrate what I mean, I'm going to give you 2 quick examples of product-led developments at Cheapflights in recent months. In the spring, we were among the first travel search brands to introduce a Facebook Messenger chatbot, allowing users on that platform to engage with us while remaining within an environment where we know they are comfortable and talk to us as if we're one of their friends. So not only can we continue to do the thing we're best able to do, which is giving expertise, that's one of the 5 need states, in answer to a flight search query, we're doing so using a medium we know that they trust. We boost our own trust equity by association, as well as hit the target in terms of accessibility, timeliness, because as you can see from the video, the results are pretty much instant, utility, and relevance. And what started as simple flight data is now spinning off to include other data feeds that you can see listed on the screen, including weather and currency information, thus making us even more of a trusted utility. By personalizing yourself or ourselves and making yourself available to users on their terms, you make yourself stickier and more likely to win their long-term loyalty. Another example of how we've taken technology and personalized it has been to add emoji search to our mobile site, meaning users can select from a range of destination-specific emoji figures instead of just typing them out. If emoji is something that we know that they trust, and we know that they do, then why not let them speak to us on their terms and use them? Personalization in this context is about putting the emphasis on accessibility to build trust and loyalty. But before trying to speak someone else's language, though, you need to know who they are. Segmentation has to be the first step in personalization. Until you know what makes your audience tick, how can you give them what they want? And without that, what hope do you have of capturing their loyalty? Our subscription newsletter allows us to hyper-target users based on their click behavior and then serve them with deals and content we know empirically that they are interested in. For example, we segment subscribers by their departure airport and serve them with a list of 20 deals, weekly deals, relevant to that airport according to their preferences, which are then incorporated into the subject line of the email that they receive. Is it the segment of one that is the holy grail of personalization? No. Should you aspire to that? Good luck. We don't have 12 million different emails going out individually to all of our global subscribers, but we can make them at least relevant by placing at the top of the deal which their behavior suggests they are most likely to be interested in. We then empower those users to tell us how much they want to hear from us and in what form, and the examples given there are on the screen. Users appreciate, as a result of that there's very little fat in the diet that we're feeding them, and it means our partners are being linked to people who we know have expressed an interest in their product. In both cases, it helps us to establish loyalty to us because we've taken the time to study what they want and respond with something relevant to them. This incremental approach to personalization, patiently building trust through gradually turning up the relevancy volume of communications with users and subscribers, is working in terms of revenues and open rates. The industry average open rate is around 20%, whereas some of our destination-specific newsletters are seeing open rates in excess of 80% and a click-through rate of around 50%. Showing how users respond when a brand takes the time and effort to understand what is personally appealing to its users through good data science. But personalization by degree only works if you're taking the time to invest in and interpret the analytics, which might suggest where improvements can be made. At Cheapflights, we relentlessly multivariate test, which in effect means that we have an ongoing product and communication development regime in place with direct resonance with loyalty. On the simplest level, it helps us to ensure that we only release features and campaigns which work in terms of site functionality, brand positioning, commercial objectives, and what our users are telling us they actually want to receive from us. However, it is important that we, and any brand or platform with access to the kind of data that we have, strike a balance between using that data to serve information grounded in the utility and timeliness for our users, and knowing too much about them, and crossing the line from insight into intrusion. So to summarize, if the end state of personalization is to attract and retain customers, or in your case, if you're a blogger, followers, by winning their trust and loyalty and earning their repeat visits, then it's imperative to think carefully about the need states that underpin those concepts and how you are achieving them. Although this slide suggests the hierarchy of personalization is static, it is in fact a living thing. The need states themselves don't change, but the relative significance of each of them will do so according to the feature or product we're introducing and the users we're looking to reach. You could even say, it's personal. Thank you very much.
Hello, London. Thank you all for coming to our talk this afternoon. We're really excited to have you here and talk about personalization. Phil gave us a great overview of it from the brand side, and now I want to spend a little bit of time giving you the blogger perspective. So just to get us off on the right foot, I'd be hypocritical talking about all things social media and telling you not to use it. So we've got some handles up here. I'm a lady in London. We've got Cheapflights, our amazing organizers, Traverse Events, and obviously WTM. So please feel free to be on social media while I'm going through my talk. I won't be offended. Just so you know who I am, for anybody here who doesn't know me, my name is Julie Falconer, and I write a blog called A Lady in London. And I started the blog back in 2007 when I quit my finance job in San Francisco and moved to London, legally with a visa, don't worry, with no job and no plan, and I started blogging. And A Lady in London was a travel and expat blog and just a personal hobby in the beginning. And then 2 years later, at the beginning of 2010, I turned it into a full-time job. So I've been running my blog as a business for almost 7 years now. So hopefully that gives me some credibility to be up in front of you today. I also do a lot of speaking and lecturing like this, and teaching classes and events. I'm teaching a good How to Work with Bloggers class on Thursday night. If anyone's interested, take a look at my website. So, with that said, I want to now talk about some of the challenges we face as bloggers with personalization, and I think brands can probably relate to these challenges as well. One of the things that has changed a lot since I started blogging, I started my first blog in 2002, and one of the things with blogging in 2002 was that there weren't really many blogs out there. And even when I started my personal A Lady in London blog, 2007, there weren't still that many blogs out there. And one of the nice things about that was that a lot of people came to me. People were looking for content. Word of mouth recommendations came in. People found my blog on Google. And now, fast forward to 2016, and we kind of have the opposite situation. There are hundreds of millions of blogs out there. There's absolute floods of content on social media, and we're absolutely inundated. And so we have the challenge now of how do we stay relevant to a much broader audience with so much other content for them out there. So we've got that challenge. We also have to face the challenge of how to scale as bloggers while still staying relevant to our audience. And it's almost the opposite of what brands have. They kind of can go big first and then figure out how to personalize later. Whereas us as bloggers have the benefit in the beginning of being really personal, of having a very kind of one-on-one relationship with our readers in the beginning because we don't have that many of them. But as we grow as bloggers and we have more and more readers, how do we maintain that level of personal interaction that people were attracted to in the first place? We also have to think about the fact that we've got a diverse readership. Not all of our readers are exactly the same, and not all of them want to see the same kind of content or the same content in the same place. So we have to face that. How do we be all things to all people when we can't be all things to all people? How do we navigate that? So those are some of the challenges we face. And today I want to help you think through strategies that we can use to address those challenges. The three that I'm going to talk about are relevance, content, and data. So starting with relevance, we know that we need to stand out, and we need to be relevant to our readers, but we also need to be relevant to a very, very crowded marketplace. Some of the ways we can do that is knowing what our audience wants to see. One of the things that you've probably seen if you're, let's say, using Instagram in London nowadays is that autumn has been a really, really popular theme for Instagram over the last month or so. Autumn leaves, autumn colors, autumn everywhere. Right now, we're transitioning slightly more into Christmas. Christmas decorations, Christmas lights, Christmas ice skating rinks are getting very popular. So one way to be relevant is just simply to share content that people are interested in right now, that's relevant to what's going on in the world right now, or maybe that's relevant to them specifically. What is it about your readers? Is there a specific demographic that you are reaching, and what is it they're interested in? What is it they're talking about right now? My accent might give me away, but there's an election in a certain country today, and maybe that's something that's relevant to your audience today, for better or for worse. You also have to think about maybe being relevant in terms of being responsive. Have your readers asked you for something? Have your readers said, we want to see more of X from you, or less of Y from you, or we want to see Z from you? Or have you asked them? Have you run a reader survey and said, what would you like me to share more of or do more of? And are you being responsive to that? People do take that as a way that you are listening to them, and people like to feel like they're being listened to. We also want to be relevant in the sense of not automating, and I sadly see way too much of this in the blogging world, and sometimes brands as well. But a lot of bloggers who are automating their content, tweeting old posts indiscriminately, or sharing content in February that's related to something in November, or sending the dreaded automated DM on Twitter as soon as you follow someone. They say, "Thanks for the follow, please like us on Facebook too." Ugh, not very relevant and looks a bit robotic, which isn't great either. So we need to make sure that we're human, we're not being automated, we're not being robotic. And we need to think about social listening to what people are saying, listening to what people want, and also listening to how they are interacting, resonating with us personally and our blogs personally. In terms of content, we also need to think about the fact that the medium dictates the message. We shouldn't just have a social media strategy. We need to have a specific strategy for each platform we're on. We need to have an Instagram strategy that's different from our Twitter strategy or our Facebook strategy or our Snapchat strategy. Because a lot of times, A, the platforms aren't meant to be used interchangeably. The content we share might resonate on one place much better than another place. And B, our audiences might be different and they might want different things. From my own personal experience, I can tell you that my Instagram followers really like travel content. My Facebook followers hate everything except for London. They absolutely fanatically love London and they don't like anything else. So I rarely share anything that's not London related on Facebook, and yet I share lots of travel content on Instagram. And that has worked really well for me, knowing specifically and personalizing that type of content for my different platforms and my different audiences. We also have to think about the fact that on social media, we are all about drawing engagement in from our audience and not pushing out a marketing message. You've probably noticed, if you're a blogger, the more you try to be giving the hard sell and really pushing things on people, the less it resonates. The more you draw engagement in from them, ask them what they think, really try to get that interaction going and being responsive with them. Again, personalizing the experience with you as a blogger and your brand as a blog, the better you'll probably see the results. You also want to make sure that you're taking care of your audience, that you are responsive. If people are leaving comments on your Facebook page or on your Instagram photos or videos, respond to them, reply to them. Don't just sit back and say, "Oh, look, I got 400 comments, that's great." If somebody took the time to comment and they left something thoughtful, take the time to comment back. That means something to people. It builds loyalty, it builds affinity, and it actually sets you apart from sort of 99% of other people who just don't take the time or don't bother. You really want it to be behavior-led, not necessarily just blanket demographic-led. You also want to think about ways that you can open up your audience to more of the behind-the-scenes daily things that you might be doing or things that you might not be able to share as easily in your kind of high gloss content on your blog or maybe on Instagram. And things like Instagram stories and Snapchat are great platforms for allowing you to get a little bit more personal, a little bit more casual, and a little bit more interactive. Again, a great place to reply to comments, to engage with people who want to engage with you, make them feel personally valued. And when it comes to data, the nice thing is we've gotten more and more and more data available to us from all of our platforms, whether it's from Google Analytics or from Facebook Insights or from any of our other platforms. Finally, Instagram is even giving us data after all these years. And so we need to look at it. We need to think about how we can use it and also how we can help our readers get what they want out of what we're doing. So we need to think about things like segmenting and targeting for things like advertising, or for Facebook, if you've got more than the 5,000 fans you can target with your organic content. Maybe something's only relevant to a certain segment of your audience. Why bother showing it to anyone else? If I'm running a competition to win a trip, but it's only open to UK readers, why show it to anyone outside the UK? I'm just going to disappoint them. So I'll segment and just show it to the right people. That's going to be better for them personally and better for everyone else who it's not relevant to. You can do email segmenting with tools like MailChimp. You can send certain types of content to certain people or your newsletter at certain times of day for optimal time for everybody around the world. You can allow your readers to subscribe in different ways. Maybe some of them want to receive emails from you every day. Maybe others only want one a week or one a month. And that allows them to consume your content in the way that they personally want to consume it. You can also do things like A/B testing and split testing. Figure out what works in terms of maybe, again, email marketing for your blog, or maybe even the layout or format of your blog, what people actually want to see, how they want to see it and view it. Once you've kind of looked at the data and seen what works, keep going with what works. Throw out what doesn't. Really look specifically into your demographics. Create your customer profiles. Think about who it is that you're reaching and what it is that might resonate and be relevant for them. Run your reader surveys. Ask people, what am I doing right? What would you want me to do more of or less of? What ideas do you have for me, if you have any? And get your actual readers to tell you what you're doing that they like and how you can continue to personalize what you're doing with the blog and your social efforts that will resonate with them. Above all, and the thing I want to most leave you with, is be human. People don't want to follow robots. People don't want to follow spam bots. People don't want to follow nameless, faceless blogs that they feel, gosh, 2 years ago I really liked this blog because this blogger seemed to be really responsive and I felt like I was almost their friend even though I've never met them. And now all I see in their feed is this sort of automated garbage, this sort of tweeting about November and February, and this automated comments on Instagram. Nice pic, great shot. Going too far in that direction might be the easy way out, and it might be helpful from a time perspective, but a lot of times we end up losing out on the personalization perspective, and our readers really, really want to get to know us. And whether that's through something that's specific conversations with them one-on-one, or whether it's just content that resonates with them because it's something that they want to see or hear, that's really what we need to focus on. So thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Julie and Phil. Really glad I can't see the back of this room because it's massive. So as we mentioned at the start of this session, we're now going to do a little bit of a Q&A. We have had some questions coming in over the WTM app, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. But also a few have been tweeted in. What I will ask is, if anybody's got any questions, just put your hands up as well. We do like to take some from the audience as go, sorry, I'm doing this so I can actually see to the back to see if anybody's hands are up at the moment. Don't be afraid to be the first person to ask. As soon as you do, there'll be a load more, and half of them we won't have the time to get to. So just to start off with a few that have been coming in over Twitter. Julie, this was for you, I imagine, which was saying how you talked about surveys. And this is like, how do you set up the surveys? Like, what software do you use, and how do you put them out there?
Great question. I use Google Docs. Google Docs has forms, and you can just create a form and then either embed it in your website or a newsletter or an email, and it collects all the answers for you. It aggregates the data, shows you graphs and pie charts and all kinds of fancy things, and it's all free, so it's pretty simple to set up.
Okay, do you use surveys as well for Cheapflights to find out what your audience are looking for?
Yeah. Is my microphone on? Yes, it is. We use surveys. We tend to use MailChimp and tools like that, but we also have run focus groups. We have a big, very busy UX team that are constantly reviewing our sites and reviewing our different products and features to be really precise in what's working and what isn't, to the point where we'll have long debates about should we put a border around that tiny box to click, and if we do, does that attract more people to it or not? And you have to get to that level of detail if you're going to take it seriously. Okay, great, thank you.
This was something which is, I think, related to some of the talks we did yesterday, but it's something which has come in asking if, this is, I imagine, to both of you, what do you think of live video to talk to your audience, and do you use live streaming at the moment?
I think live video is amazing. I have not done it myself because I come across really awkwardly on video. The more excited I seem to feel, the more deadpan I seem to look. So unfortunately, I haven't really gotten into it, but I think it is great. I think if your personality lends itself well and you come across well on live video, then I think it's great. And obviously, Facebook's making a huge push for it right now, so the time is right.
We've begun to experiment with it a little in some of the campaign work we've done, utilizing bloggers around specific promotions around certain destinations, for example, in partnership with that tourist board. And it's been very well received.
And so would you be looking at your doing this from the Cheapflights channels or working with bloggers on there? So?
Well, primarily they're skinned in the Cheapflights channels, but then we work with that blogger to run it through theirs as well.
Okay, great, thank you. As I said, we do have a couple of questions up here, so if someone's got a microphone, that would be great. If not, you're going to have to get ready to shout or come up here. Just having a look.
Hello?
Hello.
I'd like to know, we heard an interesting stat at the beginning about bloggers being more trusted, the most trusted source after friends and family. I'd like to know, with the absolute billions of blogs out there, how brands work out which bloggers they're actually going to work with. Who's the gatekeeper to tell you who are actually the trusted ones versus the millions of blaggers who are on the scene at the moment? Thank you.
So can I just point out quickly before you two answer this, is that something I'm sure we're going to be covering in our next session as well, but I would love to hear about it from Cheapflights and how they do it.
In our particular case, the gatekeepers are our SEO outreach executives. We have one working specifically with each of our key markets, and they run a bunch of analytics on that particular blog to work out the reach, the audience. Is that audience, does the audience segmentation match ours? In terms of people who we know like using our platforms. I don't think there's a perfect formula. I think it varies according to specific set of circumstances and specific objectives for that particular market. And we will approach each particular set of circumstances on a case-by-case basis. That doesn't really answer the question, but essentially there isn't an answer.
Yeah, well, there's some great companies like Traverse who actually help do it for you as well, so you can always use those. I think Julie will probably say as well that having a great pitch and showing how professional you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd also, shameless plug, come to my class Thursday, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
There you go, 2 plugs in 1 answer. Great. I know we had a few more questions. You have the lady at the front, 3rd row back here in the orange top. So it takes a second just to come with you in the microphone. So we have a microphone coming up for you now.
Hi, Julie. My question for you is, how do you find time to reply to everybody, give a personalized feedback to everyone in all the social media channels, blog, and things like that?
I have no life, so no, really, but I spend tons and tons and tons and tons of time. I wake up every morning, the first thing I do is reply to all the comments that came in overnight. Last thing I do before I go to bed is respond to all the comments I've gotten since. All day I'm checking, replying to comments as fast as I can as people leave them. And I've really seen it pay off. People appreciate it, and people, I think, feel like they want to keep doing it because they feel like they're getting a response back from it. So unfortunately, there's no quick fix, and there's no way to get around the time-consuming part of it, but it is worth it.
I think you made the point during your presentation. I know we've talked about it around the issue bloggers have around scale, and as a brand, we face the same issue. How do you maintain that kind of personalized one-to-one relationship when you've reached the scale at a certain tipping point? We've begun to use. It seems like there's some, if you like, cognitive dissonance between utilizing a chatbot to do that. But the bots are so sophisticated now that you can, through AI, they can begin to adopt your, the brand values of your particular language as well. So I think bloggers do have an issue at a certain point where they reach a tipping point between being able to do that and also maintain some kind of existence.
Yeah.
Whilst also keeping that audience, which you've grown by being very one-to-one.
Okay. We have a lady right at the front here. If we can come down with the mic. Thank you.
Rather than a, sorry, should I start again? If you're representing a brand rather than an individual person blog, how do you make sure that personalisation still comes across without being a bit cultish and creepy?
Well, as I said during my presentation, by trying to kind of make sure we're hitting the different need states of personalization, you know, so by being relevant, by making sure we're providing utility, demonstrating expertise in our particular specialism, making sure what we're saying is timely and relevant to that individual inquiry. And if you do those things, then people feel like they've been heard and the response is personal to them. You're absolutely right that, you know, as I said in my last answer, brands reach a point where it's just an impossibility to have a pure one-to-one relationship with all of their users. It's utopian. Maybe at some point in the future, technology will allow us to do that. But from our point of view, we have to reach a point where we say, this is as good as it's going to get, and we can kind of work backwards from there and use the tools at our disposal to do that, which is why we've begun to play with things like bots and introducing different ways to communicate with us, like emoji and so forth. Which, you know, you can look at it and say, well, that's a bit of a gimmick. Arguably, yeah. But also, it does, you know, we know that our users like using emoji. We see that through our social interactions with them. So why not transpose that to their actual search behavior, you know, the way that they actually interact with our interfaces.
Okay, thanks. I think we've got time for 2 or maybe 3 quick questions. This man, 8th row back on the right of the aisle, just there it is. No, okay, thanks. I know you've been waiting since the start. Cheers.
Hi. So you talked a lot about almost sort of out-of-product personalization, so segmentation for email lists, things like custom audiences for social media campaigns, etc. Julie, specifically, have you thought much about in-product personalization? So, for example, someone visiting your site and getting a slightly different experience to the next person depending on their previous, you know, what they've read in the past and that sort of thing. Is that something you've thought about?
It's not something that I've done much of. I do have a subscription form that will say if they came from Google, you know, thanks for coming from Google or thanks for coming from Twitter or something like that. I haven't done much beyond that, but I definitely think it's worth experimenting if that's something that you feel will alter the user experience in a positive way.
Okay, anything to add on that side, Phil?
Well, like Julie, we have a personal profile functionality now, which we introduced this year. So frequent users can set up a simple profile, which means that there's the flights or the routes that they're regularly searching on are quick and easy for them to find. They just have to, you know, do a single click and it's there. And they can set preferences around airlines that they like to use. So, for example, if they're a member of a loyalty program with a particular airline and want to prioritize, if they can, flying or only fly with that airline as much as they can, then they can set their searches to put the search results for that airline first above everybody else. So we are adapting and tweaking and making in-product personalization possible. And I think you'll see us doing more and more of that going forward.
Okay, great, thank you. So I think last question, we've got one more. I know a few people have had their hand up. There's a lady middle at the back standing up in the white t-shirt, if we could just come around.
Hello. You as being a blogger, I would like to ask you, because it's all about social media, personalization and everything, have you ever felt overwhelmed with social media and blogging and internet, and how do you cope with these things? Like not feeling overwhelmed with everything, with information and all the requests and all these kind of things?
Yeah, I definitely have, and I feel like that's unfortunately not going away. We have more and more that we're doing and more that's coming at us all the time. And I think as a blogger, you have to somewhat ring fence your time and prioritize, this is what I'm going to focus on, and this is how I'm going to spend my time in terms of responding or creating or sharing content. And then I also think you need to make sure that you're not allowing yourself to be inundated because you're sort of looking at too much or consuming too much content. Be specific. Maybe that's putting together lists on Twitter so you're only looking at the tweets of the people you care about, or maybe that's segmenting your own kind of consumption of social media, or saying I'm going to spend X amount of time on each platform each day and this is the time I'm spending.
But it is a tricky one, and I think, again, as we get more and more platforms and more ways to engage on those platforms, it's going to be more and more important to prioritize our time with them.
Yeah, and I think that just reiterates the importance of testing and learning from the work that you're doing and learning from campaigns that you're running. If you then go back and look at what worked and what didn't, you'll know better next time about what to give greater emphasis to and what to kind of maybe shelve for another time. I agree with you. The degree to which we can segment and split and run campaigns across multiple platforms, across multiple channels, to multiple audiences now. The technology all exists, it's there, but you have to ask at the beginning, not whether, we know we can do it, but whether we should do it, and how we can make that a more efficient process. And you only get to that point by testing again and again and again.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, we do have another fantastic session coming up in about 10 minutes, so you've got a bit of time if you want to pop out, grab a quick water, or pop for a bathroom break. We have Tika Larizati from she's going to hate me for saying that, from Skyscanner, along with Emily Goff and Lucy Adart, who are two fantastic bloggers, and we're going to be looking at whether influencer marketing as a whole is a gambling game and the best ways to make sure you're coming out on top there. Something I do feel I have to mention, seeing as we're in London speaking to a lot of bloggers and brands, is that through Traverse we're running a massive blogger conference and urban festival event next April. We've just put some tickets out for that this week, so if you've got any questions about that, come and ask me, or you can go to traverse-events.com and pick one up quickly while they're dirt cheap. If you've got any more questions about Traverse or want more information about this talk or anything else, my colleague Paul will be standing just by the exit over there. If you wanted to we've got some information on a flyer, as well as you can give cards to us, but we will be emailing everybody who's come to give you information on the talks, the slides, and everything like that comes. So, lastly, thanks so much to Julie and Phil for coming along, and we'll hopefully see you in about 10 minutes for the next one.